Well, good afternoon, everybody, from beautiful, drizzly Seattle. Today it's a little gray, a little sunny, but it's in the mid-50s, and we're just so glad that you're here with us for His Deal. This was an interesting morning. I always start out with in makeup with Liz. She takes care of me. She dots the little spots on my face where I need to be shining brightly for television here. And this morning she stepped on my feet with while she was brushing my hair, and it reminded me of that old song, my fellow Memphian. You can do anything but stay off of my blue suede shoes. So I started singing to her. I love this sign. It's on the front of a house of worship in Houston, Texas. Now, where did that go? It said, that was so good. It said, saying, "Oh God, doesn't constitute going to church." Where did that? Somebody covered that up. I'll see if I can find that later. This is, as we were saying just before we roll tape here, there's plenty of fear and anger and uncertainty in the world today. This is a beautiful time for followers of Christ to be on duty and to be available to people who are concerned about whether or not they're going to make it. And just reminded me of a verse that I look at every single day, Psalm 16:5. Yes, Lord, you, Lord, are all I have. You give me all I need. My future is in your hands. It really covers past, present, and tomorrow. And I'm so glad that we have the Lord to depend on. His administration hasn't taken a back seat. He's got a plan, and we're part of it. And your being here today is part of it. I'm glad Rod Hanley is here. Thank you, Rod, for coming. We're dedicating this show today to Snoop Dogg, who's 50 years old today. So enjoy that. And Mickey Mantle, remember when we were kids and he was our hero? Well, Mickey Mantle would have been 90 today. People, our pastor said last Sunday, people hunger not for a roadmap, but for a tour guide. Isn't that interesting? Tour guide. And one of the great tour guides for Jesus today would be celebrating his 100th birthday. Anybody know who that is? Carl? Bill Bright, your old boss. Bill Bright. And one of the guys who's doing a great job of being a tour guide is Sean Dunn with Jesus Cares. In September, this media outreach to millennials resulted in 15,323 decisions for Christ. That's an average of 510 a day. Isn't that absolutely staggering? Unbelievable. So Dirk Peterson, the last days is going to be marked by revival. And it seems that with Mario Morello's big tent meetings out in California and recently in New York State, people are thinking revival. Well, let's see. Our next Zoom is going to be November 3rd. We'll do Romans chapters 9 to 12. That'll be a real trick. Doing four chapters of Romans in an hour. And then Rod Hanley and Dr. John Trent are going to be with us on the 17th of November. And the meeting that day is on the father wound. So, Rod, we appreciate you being available for that. Doug Burley is in the midst of his 5 weeks of proton cancer therapy, even as his new book, Jesus Changes Everything, which is kind of a prescient title, isn't it? Our friend Curtis Holmes had surgery this morning. It was in at 6:45. He'll be out about an hour ago, I guess, and a very serious, painful situation that he's in is going to be about 4 to 6 weeks recovery. So our hearts go out to him. Kathy Spear is progressing, and Jim tells me she's doing well in her cancer therapy. Dave and Marcia Edward need our prayers down in California. Amy Bannister is in therapy for her cancer. Jim and Cynthia Hebert need our prayers. And we just appreciate our SWAT team that takes those requests to the Lord every day throughout the day. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to share with you Barb Schneider, Chuck and Barb Schneider, have a great 5-part series on marriage. If you go to YouTube and just put Chuck and Barb Schneider, it's 5 weeks, 5 installments. They're all free. They're a lot of fun. You'll laugh your head off, and you'll really enjoy it. And send it to your friends. Just put Chuck and Barb Schneider in on the YouTube browser, and you're in. Well, what a thrill to have Jonathan and Erica Catherman with us today. Oh my goodness. Jonathan has done a great job of keeping Erica at a distance. We've known each other for about 12 years, but he's hidden her away from me, and very wisely so, I'm sure. But we're so glad that he's bringing her out of the closet today, and we're going to get a 2-barreled approach to how to get our kids ready for life. What a great topic. Erica, would you do me a favor and introduce to us your husband, and then we'll have him introduce us to you.
All right, well, let me introduce to you Jonathan Catherman.
That's it.
Tell us about this guy.
Jonathan Catherman, wow, what to talk about. I've known him since I was 15. And he has always been creative, an entrepreneur, a lover of people. He is just a people person. He is often surrounded by groups, and sometimes has the loudest voice in the group, but is also a great listener. So has been a fantastic husband. We're growing into hopefully decent parents. Love to watch him as a dad. And yeah.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, Erica, would you do me a favor and tell us about your life between the time you and Jonathan left Seattle until the time you arrived in North Carolina? What's your family been doing during those years?
So between the time we left Seattle and moved to North Carolina, we were up north of Seattle, near the Bellingham area, and Jonathan was doing work as a youth pastor in a large church there. Basic bottom line, growing a youth ministry, not just in the church, but also working county-wide with youth there. And with that, getting a really larger scope of just the different kinds of things that youth are and were going through. And I think that's a fair assessment of what you were doing. What I was doing was taking care of little babies.
Our babies.
And why did you move to North Carolina?
Well, we did have an opportunity to move. We needed to be, with a job change came the need for closeness to an airport. SeaTac's a little crazy, along with the prices in Seattle. We had some friends move this direction, North Carolina, and we came out to visit them in January. And it happened to have been raining for about 40 days and 40 nights continually in the Seattle area. And so when we made it to North Carolina and it was January and 75 degrees and sunny. Do I have to go any further?
No, sounds good.
Between hurricanes.
Right. No, we looked at it as an adventure opportunity, and the airport here was close by and manageable, along with really cost of living. So we took the trip and made it an adventure. Thought if we don't love it, we could go back, and well, here we are 15 years later. That
long, my goodness. Okay, Jonathan, I can hardly wait to hear what you're going to say in introducing Erica.
Well,
sure she can't either.
I'm sure, right? We briefed in the hallway about what we were going to say. Erica's middle name is Joy for a reason.
Oh, geez.
And she is the most amazing woman I know, bride of my youth and still of my older age as well. We've been married now 25 years. She is a remarkable person, period. Besides being a great wife and a remarkable mother, she is recognized in about every grocery store we go to in town now because she's committed to health and wellness, and that involves her teaching a lot of classes throughout our community. So we'll go down an aisle and she'll talk to someone, and then we'll be in the over in the vegetables and she'll talk to someone else, and we'll be passing in the parking lot and she'll wave and they'll say hi. And so she is very open and offering of what she provides folks in the way of the kindness that she gives. One of her mottos is to be kind, and then the health that she provides people. So literally we get compliments about how she's helping people be healthier and they really like their life. As a friend, she is my best friend. And thank you. And I here we go. This is how I feel. If I dial in my phone, if I tell my phone to call the most beautiful girl in the world, her phone rings.
Oh,
So she's a pretty remarkable lady from the inside out, and I'm glad we get to be partners for life and beyond.
tell me about her athletic prowess.
Well, she's stronger than I am.
Maybe I should be, but
She's been in fitness since long before we met. I mean, middle school, high school, college, she was an athlete at the collegiate level, and then she even in college athletics, and today she's been fighting for gender equity. She is now a fitness instructor and a yoga instructor. She's been a coach. We eat really well. And I'm jealous of her arms is what I'm jealous of. So she is physically fit and a sound person, and so it's fun to be in the home with an athlete.
So you've been in North Carolina for 15 years now. What's been going on in your life? Summarize those 15 years for us, Jonathan.
I like what we just talked about in the hallway. Really summarizing 15 years is growing a family. Our two sons that we had on the West Coast made it across here and went from ages 2 and 5 to 17 and 20. And so kind of what we're going to be talking today, we've been living through.
Yeah, they came here as little boys and now they're young men. We've grown up, they've grown up, and we've grown into this home. And it's very strange now that one is away at college and the other, being a senior in high school, is here, enough, but it's like, wow, the house is very quiet. And we don't do as much laundry and dishes as we used to. But I spent 10 years traveling around the country. Actually more than that, I guess more 12 years traveling around the country, gone far more than I should have been. 125 or so speaking engagements a year would lead to over 200 days a year being gone. And but it was hard on our family, but we did it in partnership. And Erica, again, being the best partner you could imagine, she crushed it as in the home front. And then I got to come home and be like celebrity dad,
or reentry.
Yeah, or reentry. If you've traveled for a living, you know that when you come back into the home, there's these stages of life your kids are going through where they test. Are you really?
Are you in charge, or is it me?
Who's in charge around here? And so we used to call it reentry, and it was hard on not just the kids, but it was hard on me too, because you go from having everything in your control to everything being out of control. And I don't mean that in any negative form. It's just, when you go from hotel rooms and restaurants and airline where they all know your name, and then you come back in the house and nobody's doing your dishes for you. and it was a good professional 10 years, and I think we weathered them well as a family also. About 3 years ago, a little bit more, I came off the road full time, and have been, this family is our focus now. We've authored quite a few books in the last couple of years, and we've started a foundation. So we speak now. I speak and we speak together more occasionally than on the regular. And the biggest values right now, though, is watching our youngest son in the last 9 months prep to leave. And in fact, Eric and I were just talking the other day about doing a book launch speaking tour, and she says, nope, not for 9 months, not till Cole is done with high school and is off to college. Home is the most important thing. So if that kind of gives you a glimpse that family is our primary focus, and it should be for a lot of folks.
And we're very thankful for the last 3 years. Jonathan has been home so much more, which has been fantastic for our family as a whole, for our boys, and the writing that's been able to happen during that time has been also fantastic. And it's a creative and really expertise outlet for Jonathan, and it's been a way that our family has all kind of gotten involved in this progress of these kids growing up and leaving the house.
And we remodeled the backyard since I've been home, so that's been kind of nice.
Well, now let's spend the rest of this hour finding out what the guys want to hear from you, what they want to, if they have any questions. Does anybody have any questions right now? We're talking basically about getting our young people from preschool all the way up to their early adult years and giving them the skills and the character traits that they need to have to get by and to be good, strong citizens and followers of Christ too. And so you got the mentoring program and 9 books that you've produced already. So I want you two to take it from here. Let's see if we have any questions from anybody. Anybody have any questions up there on the Hollywood Squares? Hi, Dave. Is that a question?
Question, yes. My question would be, how, in today's world as a grandparent, and I have them from 2 to 27, how do we deal with, this is really timely, of course, but how do we deal with trying to balance what they're learning in school?
Balance what they're learning in school with
Real life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really normalcy, I'll put it bluntly, normalcy versus wokeness.
Sure. Well, I spent over 15 years as an education consultant, so I'll field this one to start. Let me give you a little context in what's going on in education, and then we can frame that up in what's kind of happening within our homes as a grandparent or a parent. The school system, to put it lightly, is doing the best they know how. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best that they can, because I think that they also often feel hobbled in some of what they want to do versus what's mandated and required they do. So Dave, it's a very good question about how do we create a balance between what they're learning at school and what they're learning at home. And I think that the struggle is that a lot of families are just trying to do the best they know how also, and it may not also be the best that they can, but they're doing the best they know how. And they also feel hobbled. And so we can look at, like I say, a bell curve. And of course, we're going to have these tail ends over here that are going to be the extremes on either side of not enough contribution or speaking too much into the subject. So whether it be at school, what they're learning in school, or what they're learning at home. How do we balance it? We feel, and then of course, as a sociologist, I could say the data also says that the number one influence in a child's life is the home, and it should be the parents. The place that they look for the greatest contribution in breathing into the discovery of who they are and what they can become should happen in your family. When that doesn't occur, or it occurs in a way that it feels counter perhaps to the overwhelming message they're getting and they're aspiring to somewhere else, then they'll look elsewhere. And then I don't think that they're looking to the school for that, but they're looking maybe to their friends at school. But then the message of school, of course, some of it's remarkable, some of it's great, and some of it you're going to disagree with. But the louder, the more significant voice should come at home, but it can't be that I've told you so. That would be an authoritarian model. We just can't tell our kids, look, you're going to believe this and you're going to do that because I know what's best for you. That will actually cause them to push away. Yeah. what the model that works best in home when we go to balance what they're learning in the school system is that we have high values for them, but also we respond well to their individual unique needs. So, and Erica is, I know she'll speak to this, our sons are very different young men. And how we parent them has its consistencies, but it also has its uniqueness. And Erica has told me when I've, particularly when I argue with the boys, because the boys and I go head to head more often than she and the boys do. And she'll say to me, you can't say that to Cole like you said it to Reed, or you can't say to Reed like you do to Cole. They're both unique. And I know this, I mean, this is what we do for work, right? But then we get all caught up in the moment as parents or as grandparents. And we say, you know what, if you just thought like this, or you just did like this, then the outcome would be, and they're saying, okay, the outcome is, we agree on, it's the approach that's the problem. So how do we balance what's going on in school? I think that you need to have the voice of authority, yet the approach of the compassionate parent, grandparent who knows each person in the home is a unique individual. And the value that they have has got to be well recognized by you and by them both. They won't care what you know till they know that you care. And so that is the highest recommendation we have on how do we create a balance. Be the authority who cares more than the school.
Erica, do you have anything to add?
No, I like that. And I think Jonathan's speaking a little bit to sometimes when there's conflict, but even when there's not conflict, if I'm hearing your question properly, there's so many hours spent in school and with friends and with sports. And so how do we balance that out as far as communicating our beliefs and our what we want our kids to know, right? What we want them to understand. And I think that doing that on a constant, consistent, loving basis is the best way to do it. They watch through what we do. And then also sometimes, you know, if we get that instruction, Jonathan did a sermon once a long time ago, or a while ago, about how the young students would learn from their rabbis. Yeah. Yep. And they would write things down on tablets and cover them with honey.
And the context of that is, may the word of God be as sweet as honey. And rather than just copy scripture down to memorize it so you have it in your head, have it become something that's extremely valuable to you. So the rabbis would do that with their Talmudim, their disciples, the young ones, the very young ones. So they fall in love with the word of God early because it's as sweet as honey. If we pound things at them, they're not going to care. You know, nobody likes getting up on the chalkboard and writing the same thing over and over and over and over again, because it's just to dive it, to secure it in your mind. It needs to be something you fall in love with. And I think that when we're talking about how do we counter what's going on outside of our home, be it the school or culture, we have to show our kids that the love in our home and the love of God is more sweet than anything they can get anywhere else. Yeah. And it seems almost wasteful and back in early, first century culture to drizzle honey, which is a very expensive commodity at the time, on a tablet seemed extremely wasteful. But how else are you going to share with young people that this is something extremely valuable? So you are the honey, and they need to see that what you share with them is more valuable than anything they can get anywhere else. We also say, not to belabor the topic, but we also tell our boys, be more influential than you are easily influenced.
Great line.
Yeah. And a thought would be, if your kids or your grandchildren are confident and capable, they can go into any environment, and not be influenced by it, because they are more influential, or they're more influential than they are easily influenced. We once had a skate park in our church in Bellingham, Washington. And the reason we created the skate park is they were having some problem with homeless teens and kids skating downtown, and the businesses didn't like it. And I said something like, well, we should build a skate park. And they said, great, what are you going to do about it? So we built a skate park. And I remember one of the early, picture this, guys. This is a big skate park in a church gym that we tore down and built every single week. We made it mobile. We moved it all around. It took hours to do. And when it opened, it was a really unique thing. No, it's nothing else like it in the area. And one of the first weeks, this mother came in and she was just beside herself. And she found me, and you could just picture this mom just wanting to bite my head off. And it had nothing to do with the skate park. It had to do with there were skaters in the parking lot smoking.
Oh,
And what am I going to do about it? And I said to her, well, that's great. And she said, what? You can't have kids smoking at church. I said, well, if you're concerned that your daughter's going to learn how to smoke at church, don't worry about it. We're not going to let that happen. But if these boys and these girls that came here to skate are also smokers, I welcome them into our place of skating and then into our place of worship. I'll worry about their hearts first and their lungs second. And so again, how do we teach our kids? I think the biggest question is, how do we teach our kids to be more influential? They're easily influenced. So they don't, just because they're exposed to something, they just don't take it on. So it's a great question. And we go back to that Erica said, be the honey rather than just the chalk on the board.
we've noticed that even having a Christian home to raise kids in and grandchildren in, that when they go off to college, they get confronted with all the opposite stuff. And they come home and all of a sudden there's the potential for rifts in the family over transgenderism or same-sex marriage or politics or whatever it may be. And it can be painful, and you can have no-fly zones that you have to clear around and keep circling the airport because you can't land in a friendly conversation. How do you prepare kids to hear the stuff that you don't believe is correct, biblically correct? And I'm just wondering if you could do like a checklist, Jonathan, Erica. Let's say that Cole is going to be off to college, and you say to him, Cole, we think that these might be some areas that you're going to be introduced to, and we want you to be prepared for those. And so you've coached him in advance how to receive this toxic information. Go for it.
I believe that the safest way to address any situation outside the home is that you've addressed it in the home first. We live in NASCAR country, and in researching one of our first books, Manual to Manhood, I was talking with a NASCAR tire changer. And, these guys can change 4 tires in the pit faster than we can talk about it. And he said, teach your kids how to change a tire in your driveway before they have to learn on the side of the freeway. And I thought that's some great advice. And you can apply that to any topic in life. So if we're concerned about what our kids are going to be exposed to outside of our home, let's say off at college or in high school, or even down to middle school and elementary school, great. Well, we should be talking about this long before they could leave. Jesus, as a rabbi, took his disciples of various ages. Remember, some of these boys were teenagers and some of them were probably in their 30s, kind of a weird consideration of a motley crew, right? And I'm not just talking about the 12, and even older when you consider all the others that follow along beside him. And Jesus went to places that, I don't know, prostitutes hung out. And there were lepers on the side of the road. And there were tax collectors. And people were drinking. But he presented to his followers a safe way to be around anybody, because you're presenting the love and you're not looking for something to come and yes, they will be attacked. They'll feel attacked at times, but greater is he who's in you than he who's in the world. And if you are confident about who you are in Christ and what it is, and even if you're trying to determine what you still believe, if you don't have the opportunity to be exposed to that first at home, it's a tough tire change on the side of the college freeway to be exposed to those things. So now scientifically, there's 2 types of learning. There's passive and active learning, and then applied learning, 3. Passive learning is you just hear about something and you have it in your head. So when kids say, I know, the truth is they probably do know between their ears, right? But so you say, but yeah, you don't know. And you're thinking how to do it. They're not thinking how to do it. They're thinking, I've heard all about it. Right. So active learning is where you are now putting into practice. And I don't mean practice because you've perfected it, but you're actually practicing something. And with each time you engage, you're increasing your knowledge and your understanding. And then applied learning means you could teach it to somebody else. But they're probably coming in at the passive learning stage, right?
Yeah,
Maybe active. So everyone that you're talking to right now, we're discussing this, we're all in applied or active or applied learning. Whereas our concerns are with young people who are in the passive learning stage. So give them some active learning before they leave home on about any topic you're concerned about, or ones you don't even, the no-fly zone is where you're going to have to land. You're going to have to get in there.
Okay, anybody else have a question?
Yeah, Jonathan, you traveled a lot, and I think a lot of the men on this screen have also been in that situation. And, you have to ask forgiveness, when you realize, but also most of the guys on the screen have adult kids that have their own kids, and some of those are adults too. How do you relate? And I'm fortunate I've got good relationships with all my kids, even though I was traveling a lot. How do you relate and help them to banter or to be a good parent? And, when you don't agree with timeouts, or you don't agree with this or whatever, how do you navigate that? Obviously, it's easier to go through your adult son, but so I'm just saying, help us, because I think some of us may have struggled with, you see something in your grandkids and when can you say something? When can't you?
Good question.
Yeah.
Maybe that's our next book. We haven't quite gotten there yet.
Title, when can you say something?
Hopefully you'll have to wait a few years before you write that one.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Right. I think Erica might have something to say. I've got something, but go for it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, you're talking about generational parenting a little bit, right? When you have that opportunity to be close and to see what's going on. And this is a question that's maybe I want to say it's outside of our realm of expertise. We're not really parenting experts on how to parent children, right? But being able to help if you're around and can help your grandchild learn some of the things that are in some of the books that we've written, those are ways that you can bond and develop relationships so that maybe conversations can come up naturally. That's just a suggestion, like out of the top of my head. But then, that would probably depend on the relationship you have with, you said, your son, and every situation's different. So,
and I mean, it's common to say we didn't do that when we were growing up,
right,
and we figured out a way that worked, right? In fact, can you reach over and grab one of the Guiding or Becoming books? The question I would ask is it the process or the finish line that you're looking for? And so like the name of our next book that comes out in March is called Raising Them Ready. If you try to tell someone how to raise their kids right, I can guarantee you're in for a fight. So maybe there's more than one right way to get to ready. And the right way that we were raised got us to ready, and the right way that your grandkids will be raised hopefully will get them to ready also. One of my favorite questions is, so how is that working for you? So, the timeout thing. Some kids respond exceptionally well to timeout. Other kids, not at all. Like they're like, wait, I get to go to my room for like an hour? Sweet.
Yep.
So there's a model I'd like to show you. In fact, on previous His Deal episodes, I've spoken on this. And if you want to read more about it, it's in the book Guiding the Next Great Generation, which has been out for 1.5 years or so. But this model, I'll just hold it to the screen so you can see it. This is a cultural norm chart. And everybody on the screen is on this side of the cultural norms. So we have here from left to right, the silent Gen, the boomers, and Gen X. And then you'll see this big gap. And the gap is between the millennials and Gen Z. And what that gap is probably what you're struggling with. And that means the cultural norm has shifted as much as would have taken 3 generations to experience. It happened in a single generation. So the way that you parent is going to be very different than the way your children parent, and the way our children are going to parent is going to be much different than the way we did. The question I come back to on the regular is, do you have an end in mind for what your child is to grow into, your grandchildren to grow into? And if you're not the primary parent anymore because you're the grandparent, the question now is, how do you partner with your kids to complement them in their parenting? And sometimes complimenting is being, good cop, or complimenting is being bad cop, or it's coming alongside and seeing how this is going to work out for the next, say, year. We're just got to be a little more patient than we feel like we are. Think about parenting and grandparenting in 3 stages. You have instruction, guidance, and counsel. And instruction, guidance, and counsel doesn't happen in individual stages, like from 2 to 9, they get instruction, and from 9 to 16, they get guidance. And then from, once they're 18 or whatever and older, it's just counsel. It actually happens in consecutive cycles. So like think about teaching a young child to ride a bike. You have to give them direct instruction, but then there's a point where you actually have to physically release them. And then from that point on, you're just giving them guidance, right? And then there even comes a point later on where they'll come back to you and say, what do you think about? Well, now they're asking for counsel. And it could be about a bike, or it could be about a relationship with a friend. It could be about their love of God. And how do we go through instruction, guidance, and counsel in these cycles? So when we look at, and we don't have grandkids, and I thankfully my parents are a good example of this, and Erica's as well, is they let us parent. And they complement us in our parenting. And I've never had, I don't think we've ever had our folks say, you're doing it wrong. Because that'll shut a door real quick. But when we go back to our parents, like, we still will talk to our folks about parenting styles and about things, because what we're doing is we're coming to our parents for counsel. And when that door is open, because it hasn't been slammed shut from conflict, then it becomes a 2-way conversation. And generational wealth, and I don't mean finance, but generational wealth can be passed on, and how the next generation invests it, hopefully we agree with, especially when we say, wow, man, those kids came out all right. I didn't know if they were going to make it, but man, they came out all right. So be patient and think about passive, active, and applied learning. And think about instruction, guidance, and counsel, and about being a partner with your kids.
Walter, would you see if you could put up the slide with all their books, and maybe they could just tell us what each book is about?
I think it was one of your parents that let go of Reed's seat as he took off on his bike for the first time.
Probably, yeah.
Oh, not me.
Okay. So the funny thing is, that is not my first wife, nor my second wife, but it looks a lot like her. So how about this, Walter? Take us back to Live Shot, and we actually have copies of the books right here, because it's kind of fun to do it this way, I think.
Okay.
So this whole process of writing began with, and we'll keep this real brief, a book called The Manual to Manhood. Thank you, love.
That's it.
Yep. Manual to Manhood is this book here, and it is 100 life skills and character traits for boys as they transition between boyhood and manhood. And in this book is our chapter leads from world-class experts on the topics that we discuss. So, and they range from everything from women in dating and social skills and manners to wealth and money management to clothing and style. Someone you may know rather well is the chapter lead for work and ethics. His name is George Tolles. So George, as my mentor, is actually featured in this book, along with other NFL superstars and work and celebrity chefs. And so the readers, who are usually somewhere between the ages, say 10 and 20, get to have someone else's input on a topic that I'm sure everyone in their family has been telling them how to do. But now it's valued because it's coming from somebody else, and or they're having access to information that they've never had the opportunities. Nobody's taught them before, and they don't really know how to ask. George, Liz, your wife, said once, I was talking to the two of you, I said, what do you think every boy desires? And she piped up and said, to gain respect and avoid embarrassment. And that was it. And there was a period at the end of that sentence. Mm. And I have spoken that 10,000 times since. And that's what the Manual to Manhood is all about, to gain respect and avoid embarrassment. The cool thing is, Erica?
Girl's Guide to Conquering Life. He convinced me to co-author this with him. It took a little bit of convincing. We do have 2 sons, and so I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if that I should be doing this, but I have worked with I am a girl, and work with many girls over the years, and whether sports teams or
church youth groups,
devotional groups, things like that. So went ahead and did it, and I had the awesome opportunity to interview the chapter leads for the Girls Guide.
Yep. And the topics in the Girls Guide to Conquering Life and the Manual to Manhood are the same, because girls need to know how to change tires, and boys need to know how to iron, and girls need to know how to sew on a button, and boys need to know how to shoot pool. So, it's all just a bunch of cool skills. And this book, I think, is in 7 or 8 different languages around the world now. And we just signed a new contract for Girls Guide, 3 different languages. 4. Yeah, now often they just signed for German. We also have Manual to Middle School and Girls Guide to Conquering Middle School. And very similar to the first 2 books, these are life skills and character traits, but for the transition between elementary school and middle school. And we picked this for a purposeful reason. One, it's one of the most difficult transition in the lifetime of a young person is that age demographic, moving up from elementary to middle school. And when it comes to just their lack of confidence. If we can establish good roots at this age, then they're able to weather many other storms in the years to come. Cool thing was middle school, Manual to Middle School, I co-authored my sons Reed and Cole, because Reed was leaving middle school and headed to high school, and Cole was leaving elementary school and moving into middle school. And over the dinner table, they'd have these conversations about all the things Cole should do and shouldn't do in middle school. And so that's how we formatted the book as a do this, not that model. And the same illustrator we had for the Manual to Manhood and Girls Guide, which is a Marvel Comics illustrator, he did also our Girls Guide and the manual for middle school. And so the boys and I co-authored this, and then we reproduced it for the girls too. So same topics, and just real easy and fun. This is a fun book to have.
I keep hearing people say, I can't believe I got this for my kid, and I found them reading it from cover to cover, because it's not just walls of words, because of the comic, the illustrations and the do this and don't do that. And it's full of pop quizzes, jokes, fun facts, quotes from other, at the time, kids their own age.
So then I kept being asked when we're going to write for older demographics. So that's when we produced Guiding the Next Great Generation and Becoming the Next Great Generation. And this is the same book, but this blue copy is for adults who have a role in a young person's life, starting about upper middle school, early high school, through college. And then Becoming the Next Great Generation is the young person's version. So it's the same book, just language slightly different. And if you put them together, the bridge becomes one. Well, that was a purposeful branding there. But it covers 4 significant challenges in a young person's life today, and they need to be able to address. And that is to build bridges between the generation, to practice stewardship before leadership, to transform raw talents into valued strengths, and to live with purpose. So it's a little higher altitude read, but it's still a fun and easy read. And again, we created an adult version because you are the guides. And one of the statements we have is, in the belief that their greatness tomorrow begins with our guidance today, we have to talk the same talk and be pointing them in the same direction. So these two go together. And last but not least, we have coming out in March of this next year, title that we've been, dropping the title a little bit, called Raising Them Ready, Practical Ways for Parents to Prepare Their Kids for Life on Their Own. And it is, it's almost like the first book we should have written, but we had no business writing at the time because we hadn't gone through that stage. But it covers three major, well, I say it like that, three. It covers three major topics. We talk about a readiness assessment, where you're able to assess if your kids or grandkids are ready in not just like 18 and older, but starting at about age 2 through the different stages of life as they progress in life skills development and character traits.
From 2 to 22.
From 2 to 22.
Ish.
And then we have a launch list of over 300 items that they need to learn how to do, and some skills they need to, or some tools they need to acquire and learn how to use before they leave home. And then there's a release plan for parents and how you go about knowing that your kid is good to go. And I mean good to go, like good to go to the park on their own, or good to go and move out of the house. So we span the spectrum of 2 to 22. So that's the meat of our writing. And then we have our foundation guides as well, which are the Men in the Making and Women in the Making club guides. And those are free downloads online. You just got to go to our website to find them.
What are you doing in the mentoring in the club business? Tell us how widespread that is and what you hope to accomplish.
Well, go ahead.
Well, it started out quite strong a few years ago, but with COVID, it literally shut down. Nothing's happening. And
Very little.
oh yeah, very
Yeah,
little, very little, and not nothing, very little. But as kids are staying in school, not being back at remote learning and things like that, we're seeing a little bit of pickup, but we're all funding, and a lot of the school's extra time is being designated for catching kids up with their lessons. They're having people come in and volunteer, and donations again in time are going towards catching kids up in STEM and reading, things like that. So we know that we have maybe some time that we're going to have to wait a little bit, but we do feel like it will be back in the kind of, it'll go back into the schools and back into use as things kind of get back to whatever this is normal.
Yeah. And we're remodeling how we're going to provide those resources. Right now we have Men in the Making and Women in the Making club kit resources, which include curriculum and actual club kits like t-shirts and wristbands and lanyards and things that the kids want to have. And we're moving to a more free resource and so they can download on the content that they want to create themselves. But the whole idea is, how do we get young mentees in groups with mentors in a way that that they can learn life skills and character traits. In the public school system, we know all the kids are in school. So that's where the majority of the energy is going, because we can get to the kids, meet them where they are. Well, we know they're in that building for quite a few, 5 days a week for months on end. So let's meet them there. And so we provide those resources to education for free.
Do we have another question? We got room for one more good question and a complete answer. And I know it's difficult when you're dealing with perfect parents and grandparents like we have here. We've never made a mistake, so.
No.
Not in the last 10 minutes.
I have a question. It's appropriate, probably more appropriate in the last year, maybe even couple of years, but it's becoming more and more a problem with not only our grandkids, but with our children. And that's the political divide. And I don't know, without getting into details, but obviously we have on one side conservatives and liberals. And it seems like kids are kind of divided, but I have a couple that are what I would call flaming liberals and can't agree on anything. And it's so bad, absolutely so bad. My son won't even talk to me. And it's being influenced heavily. Of course, they're out of school, they're older, but it's so influenced by the media and what they're hearing and et cetera. So it's quite a divide, and it's very hard to get together because all I hear is, well, you're a racist.
Yeah,
I'm
it's hard.
seeing a lot of head nodding.
Yeah, right.
We
Go,
don't
you go
like,
for it.
I'm just going to say, we don't like to delve into the political side of things, and for obvious reasons, right? If you're having problems that there's no more, that people aren't talking, that's a pretty great divide. And so I try to look for ways to unite rather than divide. And I think that maybe that we need to focus on the most important things.
Yeah, and I'm a big advocate for, if it's something that causes a rift in your family, then it's not a front burner thing for you. It shouldn't be, because you can't eat that. You can't cook it with it. It's not going to happen. So let's use our own family as an example. If there was a topic that was going to cause a rift between Reed and Cole and Eric and I, it's not that we would avoid the topic, but I'm not trying to win in that topic. You're not going to change my mind. I'm set, right? And if if my boy's mind isn't changing because of what I have to say, I am not going to allow that to cause a divide between us. They're too important to me. Now, I'm not saying that we have to agree. I think that's the beauty of being mature adults, is we can still disagree with someone and sit right next to them and laugh and cry, and this is not going to divide us. And if you're the only one being a bridge builder, then you've got twice as far to build. But it sure beats the heck out of having no relationship with our kids, because the day may come, and I don't know what day that is. It might be tomorrow, and it might be 10 years from now. And it might be after our time with them, where if they change their mind and they say, wow, I'm thinking about this differently now, I wouldn't take credit for it. I'd take their maturity would be the credit for that. And I would be more game for, okay, here's a statement that we have in our home. There's nothing in this world you can do to make me love you any less. It may not be that I like what you're doing, but there's nothing you can do to make me love you any less. And today I love you more than I did yesterday.
In many ways, although at this point, I think, at least in mine, and I'm guessing others, we're not trying to change them. So I think you're speaking from the point of view of we're trying to change them. How do we change them, as opposed to the real strength is the strength of them trying to change us in a very, very belligerent way. And so, so when we aren't talking is the nicest thing, because because they, you know, I like a car. Oh, that's, if you just say that just for something to say, oh, you shouldn't be driving. You should be on a bus. You should, you know, so I mean, every single item.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Tell me more about that. That's very interesting. You know, I think that some of the people I respect the most are really master conversationalists. And you feel like you're having a conversation with them, but you realize they're just doing a lot of listening. And at the end, I vomited all over the place, and I'm the only one that has anything to clean up.
With words.
You know, with words, right? Just with words. And they didn't change their mind, but they let me speak mine. And they're masters at this. And I wish I was more like that. So I wish I could say, here, take 2 of these and call me again in the morning, and you'll be a master listener. And your kids will like you more. I also think it's going to take time. We're in a place right now where things are too fast. So we need to wait. We need time.
Jonathan and Erica, I've got a new business for you when the publishing thing runs out. I think you ought to start a company called Parents B&B. And you take the kids of people who don't want to go through, don't have the patience to go through the parenting years. You raise them for them. And if they're 22, you give them back to them. Parenting B&B.
That's going to be an expensive venture. 'Cause that's,
George, I
Well-
think you just made me tired.
yeah.
Well, we talked about being your kid's friend, and nothing you can make that will make them love you less. And there's a sweet little girl named Claire Crosby, 4 years old. She's from Seattle, and she sings with her daddy. And Walter, let's hear this and crystallize in your mind, wrap up the thoughts that you have from her, from Jonathan and Erica today about what your next step is going to be with your kids or your grandchildren. All right, buddy.
This is,
You got a friend in me,
yep, by Claire and Dad.
by Claire and Dad.
You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. When the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old pal said. Yeah, you got a friend in me. Girl, you got a friend in me.
This is the second verse. I'm doing the second verse. You got friends in me. You got a friend in me. You got troubles. I got them too. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you. We stick together, can see it through. 'Cause you got a friend in me. Yeah, you got a friend in me.
Some other folks might be a little bit smarter than I am, bigger and stronger too. But none of them will ever love you the way I do. It's just me and you, girl.
And as the years go by,
Our friendship will never die. You're gonna see it's our destiny. You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. Yeah, you got a friend in me.
George, you have to send that to us.
Who do you want to send it to?
I'd love to be able to send that to a couple folks.
Same here.
We'll send it to you.
That's great.
She's even in, she's got the right tone. She's got
Oh,
everything.
my.
She's tremendous.
Well, it's time to roll credits. Thanks to Jonathan and Erica Catherman today. This wasn't exactly what I had in mind for format, and I don't think it's what they had in mind for format, but it was perfect
Mhm.
because we got to address the itches that needed to be scratched. And so I hope that you guys, especially your grandpas, will order the books for your sons and daughters and give them a head start on getting these skills and traits indoctrinated in them. Thanks to Walter Powers, our technical director. And I want to invite you to return here on November the 3rd, when we'll dive deep into chapters 9 to 12 of Paul's letter to the Romans. And by the way, Walter will have this session today posted on hisdeal.org later this afternoon or early this evening. And you can take a link from the browser up there and send it to anybody you want to send it to. And that goes for all of our previous Zooms too. So, November 17th, we're going to have Rod Hanley and John Trent. And Rod, you want to give them a little tease about that session?
The father wound is a real thing, guys. Either we've been wounded or we're the wounder, and they say 90% of us can relate to that subject. So we're going to talk about some specific things on how to heal the wound. And I got a pretty cool story involving my own healing of a wound that took place this summer. So it's going to be special.
You know, we just deal with the superficial, light, fluffy, ethereal, impractical topics on these Zooms.
Yeah.
So it's just great. Jonathan and Erica, do you have any closing thought?
The only thing that kept coming to mind, especially watching that cute little song between the father and daughter, is just the relationship between parent and child. And I want to say especially today, but I think in all generations, we all have our own stresses and difficulties and challenges. And so often the younger generation needs a place to land and be held in love.
Mhm.
And I think that if we can be that, and they can feel that love, the trust towards you will grow, and the relationship, I think, in turn will also grow.
And believe it or not, they need you. So
Yes.
their greatness tomorrow begins with your guidance today.
Yeah.
Over a long period of time. Be patient and kind with them.
We're so grateful for what you guys are doing to help us with our kids. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yep,
And,
thank you.
Thank you.
have a great day, everybody. I love you. God loves
too,
you.
George.
It's all his deal, remember.